Welcome to the Sportsmen's Constituent Group meeting of September. For those of you watching, welcome. Thank you for taking the time out of your evening. As the department being the host, we're glad these volunteers have taken time out of their evening to be with us this evening. Just wanted to cover a few things prior to the unveiling of the agenda. The restrooms are right outside the door of the lobby there. Also, if you have any questions or comments during any of the agenda items, that's perfectly okay. Just make sure that you use one of the mics on the sides. That way the folks that are watching online can join us. If you weren't able to pick up an agenda, there was one right outside the door. There is some up here by Director Hovatter and Commissioner Davis. Be sure to pick one of those up. I'll just go through it really quickly. Commissioner Davis has agreed to do a little overview for those of you who aren't familiar with the Sportsmen's Constituent Group, of giving a little history and background, and then we'll be turning it over to the board, the newly elected board, to discuss some of their ideas and get some of your feedback. But first, what I'd like to do is turn it over to Director Hovatter, who has a few words for you.
It's Deputy Director Hovatter. I don't want the word to get back to Larry that I had a coup while he was gone. Hey, I tell you, first thing I'd like to do is I imagine everybody in this room remembers where they were on this date in 2001. Many of you know I retired from the Army. I spent 30 years in the Army. I was assigned to the Pentagon that day. So this is a day that is always a time for me for reflection and to think about people and places. So I think it'd be very appropriate for us all to take a moment of silence to remember our fellow Americans that died that day and all of the men and women who have died for us since that day. Thank you. I think it'd also be great, guys, if you'd stay up. There's no better time to pledge allegiance to the flag of our country. Men and women have been wearing that into combat ever since 9/11. So I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I just wanted to take a couple moments and then get out of your way. On behalf of the director and the department and all of the men and women that are part of it, and all the many volunteers and you who are a part of that team now, just wanted to thank everybody for your participation and for putting yourself out there. You know, we're not fighting for the same stakes that the men and women in uniform are, but we are fighting a battle. We are waging a war for a future that is anchored to the past of that made this country what it is. There are many, many forces aligned against us who seek to end hunting, fishing, the shooting sports, and anything else that offends their sensibilities and their emotions. I can respect people who hold honest opinions different from mine and those of us in this room who are supporters of what we love to do. Having said that, I do think that the approaches that many of the people we are dealing with and many of the organizations we deal with use are less than honorable. And that doesn't make them any less effective. So I really appreciate your putting yourselves out there for the things you love and for this state. So with that, I will get out of your way, and thank you very much for being here.
Thank you, Gary. Appreciate it. At this time, we'll turn it over to Commissioner Davis.
Good evening, and the biggest reason we're using the microphone tonight is because of the webcast. So we're going to want to keep that in mind when you're having conversations, so our folks that are watching on the web will be able to hear what you're talking about. I too want to add to what Deputy Director Hovatter said, and I'm glad we took a moment of silence to recognize what occurred But interestingly, as we all know, and this morning getting up and reflecting on it, and I was fortunate to get up extra early and be able to reflect on it, which was a wonderful thing because, quite honestly, there's years sometimes that go by that I probably haven't reflected on September 11th enough, but I did get to this morning. And during that time of reflection and kind of going back, thought about obviously the horrible and horrendous things that happened that day, but then there's a lot of wonderful things that happened since then for our nation and for what happened to people around our country. And like our country has done over and over again, we take bad events and turn them into positives. We take challenges and turn them in many times into very successful progress. And so when we talked about a little bit of an overview of why we're here tonight, we're here last February, the commission was meeting and there was a lot of discussion, as we all know, about potential and proposed legislation and about issues that we were facing as people that pursue the sports of hunting and fishing and outdoor recreation. And there was, as we all remember, wasn't the best of times. It was tough on everybody, no matter where people were on particular pieces of legislation. Quite honestly, I don't, at this point, don't care. But we all know that what happened was a conversation began to occur out of something that wasn't what any of us probably would have said is the best way for us to start having and trying to have a new and different conversation. And now we fast forward to tonight, and out of what happened during that time, and the commission in February saying to a new commissioner then, at my first meeting, hey, we'd like to see if you could try to engage some of our leaders from the hunting and fishing and outdoor recreation groups to see if we could begin a process, a different kind of dialogue, increase communication with the department, looking at a host of issues. And by the way, you're the new guy, you get to do this. At first I was like, that, what are you talking about? Now it's the best thing that ever happened to me, because one is I've met all of you in the room, and that has in many ways changed perceptions, helped educate me, taught me things that I certainly didn't know. Talking to people around the state, responding to emails, phone calls, going to different events where I've talked about the work that you're all doing has impacted me personally in a really wonderful way. And I know this is just the beginning of a lot of hard work that you've already been putting in, but it's really just the beginning. But as I was reflecting this morning, there is good that can come out of challenging events. And this group and all the work that you've been doing is an example of that. So the overview of this is going to be short, which is you've took the time, each of you that is sitting in here tonight and some of the folks that are watching and listening, to begin to try to step up and think about a different way, and I'm not using the word better, a different way to look at some of the issues that are going to and have been confronting us. You are going to help increase communication between the department and its professionals and folks like yourself who are in the field and are leaders in the field, and that's all a good thing. That's all a very positive thing. You're going to increase the perspective of 5 commissioners who sit there in it for a temporary period of time, and I hope over the years you will help educate, provide information for, push around, email, call future commissioners as well, because your perspective and your knowledge and the people you talk to and the interfaces that each of you bring is different, and that will have a positive impact on the department. I also think from the professionals in our department, your ability to bring information. to assist where you deem necessary on policy will be of huge help. And so again, in looking backward, as tonight you're really going to be looking forward, where we came from was talking about a single subject, and where you're at this evening is you're talking about multiple subjects. You're talking about multiple issues. You're talking about different ways of communicating those issues. You're talking about legislative impact and changes that may need to be made, or things that need to be strengthened legislatively. You're talking about outreach and transparency. I mean, you're talking about a lot of different issues. And where my hat's off to you is when the commission started talking about this, we talked about that in a year, meaning February to February, we would hopefully have a group of people that were choosing to go on a path and organize themselves and begin a process. And here we are in September, and one of those few things that ever happens in life, something's actually getting done ahead of schedule. And my hat is off to each and every one of you for that. So really the overview is on time, on schedule, and certainly on budget. You've been meeting the expectation. And I hope that each of you takes a moment to pat yourself on the back for how many hours you've already put in, for the hours that you will put in. There is an opportunity to transform the conversation, an opportunity to transform the debate, an opportunity to build a stronger constituent group. Because I do agree with Deputy Director Hovatter that for too long, in my involvement as just a person out in the field, our communication has been pretty disjointed. Our disagreements too fast to the forefront, and our agreement too many times pushed to the back. And that's not how you wage successful battle. And what we've got to get better at is standing up for the principles that we all aspire to. And these other debates where we have debates about particulars, all important and all good, but at the end of the day there's a larger calling and a larger battle that we are engaged in, which is about preserving our heritage, is about preserving and expanding all of our roles in the management of wildlife for this generation and future generations. And you're at the center of that, and I want to just give you kudos and my hat's off, because I know that I couldn't be at the last meeting because my air conditioning went out, and that wasn't a good thing on that day. If you remember, it was pretty warm. By the way, a tip to everybody, if somebody puts in your air conditioning, make sure that the drain pipes are below the air conditioner, not going uphill, because I did learn that physics when I was looking at my air conditioner of why the water was running into my ceiling, that the guy that put it in didn't understand those physics. So a tip to everybody, put the air conditioning unit above the drain, above your drainage system. I don't know who was thinking when they put that in, but I appreciate you letting me miss that meeting. My wife appreciates it as well. So with that, we're going to bring up Alan, who I want to give a special thanks to, because he's really stepped up for duty. So thank you, Commissioner. Now I get to go sit in the back. So, thanks a lot.
Good evening, everybody. I appreciate you all being here, and I appreciate all the volunteers that have worked really hard on SCG to this point. My song and dance starts with how we got here, and it's somewhat of a not convoluted but complex process. We had multiple meetings after that first meeting of March 22nd. At the March 22nd meeting, there was a website, or not a website, but an email address posted on the board asking for volunteers, and myself and the rest of the volunteers were foolish enough to volunteer, and so that's how the beginnings of this group got together in terms of the volunteers. That was on the 22nd of March. May 8th, we had all the volunteers come together in a meeting. And we brought together the information that was turned in after the March 22nd meeting and somewhat analyzed all that information to dissect it and put it into what we consider to be major chunks. And from the major chunks or major themes, we then established subcommittees, feeling like all the information and data that was brought forth in the first meeting and discussed in the second meeting, that's our central theme. That's what we should go after, and how do we categorize those most efficiently. Putting those into major standing committees or subcommittees, we then went and had actually volunteers raise their hand on who would like to chair the subcommittees. Next meeting, we had an unincorporated association copy of bylaws, and we had the pleasure of sitting for 2-3 hours going over legalese as it relates to bylaws and how should we set up this brand new organization and what should the bylaws be. So we spent an awful lot of time in July. It says draft bylaws, but back and forth changing some of the verbiage and some of the words, and then also we're in the whole middle of all of this, we're also trying to figure out what we really are. What do we stand for? What's our mission? What's our goals? What are we trying to accomplish? How do we not step on anybody's toes? And I would have to say, even right now, this Sportsmen's Constituent group is a fluid group in that we're open for suggestions, we're open for ideas, and open for going not on the path of least resistance, but on the path that's most successful for everyone. And I'm talking about everyone in the room here and on the internet. What we want to be about is the preservation of our hunting and fishing heritage and outdoor heritage, and we want to do what's right, not what's easy. Our last meeting was August 21st, and we took those bylaws that we ripped up quite a bit in July and ended up doing some more fine-tuning and then adopted those bylaws. And for the sake of transparency, we immediately posted those on the website. I think it's important to try to be as transparent as possible, and right, wrong, or indifferent, the bylaws that the volunteer standing committee put together was put right up on the website. At that point in time, we elected a board, and then we all agreed that we need to pursue a 501c3 status. And so instead of going through the bylaws line item by line item tonight, the bylaws are going to change immediately once we are awarded or garnered the 501c3 status. So the bylaws are on the website. If people want to look at those and provide any input, that's great. But again, they're going to change once we change our status. From the bylaws, we put together a mission statement, or during the process of creating the bylaws, we spent a lot of time trying to figure out what are we going to all be about. And at this point, I would say this is who we are, or who all of us are really what we're all about. The bottom line talks about ensure the opportunities and longevity of our outdoor sporting heritage and recreational heritage. I, for one, volunteered for this organization with thoughts down the line about my grandkids. I don't know about everybody else's impetus, but that's a big one for me. I don't want to see a loss or restriction or elimination of their rights down the road. And so I'm willing to put in a lot of effort to ensure that my children and my children's children down the road have the same heritage that I've been able to enjoy. I think it's important to note that we subscribe to and stand behind the North American model of wildlife conservation. I think everyone that is in wildlife conservation now, whether it's with SCG or any of the other organizations, really needs to have that handbook in their house somewhere, at work, wherever, and read that. It was really disturbing for me to read some information on the model and find out that a lot of the graduates in the United States of America now, wildlife graduates, don't even know anything about the North American model of wildlife conservation. And I think it's something that we need to take seriously. We're so good as people to respond to threats, but when the threat doesn't seem ever present. We don't seem to step up, whether lack of focus or what have you. And I think now, Commissioner Davis mentioned it, that there are threats that we don't see that aren't right in our face, but yet they're out there. They're out there every day. Don McDowell later on will talk about a few issues that are present, and they're all threats to the way we'd like to continue to do things now. So I think that this mission statement is apropos. I think it speaks to how we feel, and I think we can add to this down the line with a vision statement. But the important part about tonight's get-together is formalizing a body. Until this body's formal, we can't really move forward in a professional manner. Okay, from the March 22nd meeting, everybody either raised their computer hands and sent in the willingness to volunteer, and so I'm going to introduce our steering committee, and bear with me without my glasses, but these are the volunteers from the initial March 22nd meeting, and I can see how we also need to have the volunteer list for all facets of the organization keep increased. So I think the theme of tonight is not just information of where we've came from and where we're going, but more importantly, we need and want a lot more volunteers. Here's the initial group of volunteers. I've got Carl Schottel, Dana Stoneberger, Don McDowell, and you'll notice the dual asterisks on the right. Don McDowell has graciously offered to be the chair of the Standing Committee for Legislative Issues. Gene Owens, Hector Alberon, Jerry Doughtet, Mark and Christine Smith, Paul Cormany. And we got Phil Kramer. He wasn't able to make it tonight. He's traveling for work, but he is the lead, if you will, or the chair for the Standing Committee of Departmental Issues. And we got Randy Burton, who's graciously accepted a position to be the chair for the Inclusiveness Committee, Scott Corporon, Steve Craig, and Tim Godwin. Our next order of business would be the formal seating of the officers that were voted from the floor at our third meeting, I believe it is. And Kurt, I had you listed here as doing the formal seating, but I'm understanding you want me to introduce the officers? Okay, I won't introduce myself first. I'd like each officer to come forward, but I've got Steve Craig has been voted as the vice chair. Steve, would you come forward, please? Great big round of applause for Steve. And then our secretary is Hector Alberon. Treasurer, Dana Stoneberger. So this is almost the quorum for our board of directors, but in the bylaws it talks for an officer at large. And I did an overhead on the officer at large to explain what this position is, because a lot of times people think that the officer at large doesn't have a lot of duties and it's just sitting in a chair. Actually, the officer at large would be just an additional representative of the general membership. Any interests or concerns that wouldn't fall underneath our existing standing committees would come from him and be brought to wherever he thinks it best fits. And he gets the responses from the board or the standing committee chair. It also says in our bylaws that he does what he does at my direction. I found that ironic. I found that too bland, and so I like this description here that he garners information, he solicits input from the general membership and brings that to the board. And as part of the bylaws, we have to then get nominations from the floor of names of people that would like to sit in that position, and that person, of course, has to agree with that. So at this point in time, I'm opening the floor up for nominations for the position of officer at large.
I would nominate Scott Corporon.
Scott, do you agree with our mission statement, and is that something that you would be willing to run for this position?
Yeah, I can't remember, you still get to help out on the committees?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. If I can still help out on the committees, I can do it.
Other names from the floor?
Mr. Chairman, Pat Headington, Yuma, Arizona. I'm actually a member of the Yuma Valley Rod and Gun Club.
Good.
This question, is the nomination limited to the volunteers that signed up?
No, absolutely not. It's my understanding that the only requirement for a volunteer is he or she needs to believe in our mission statement, and they'd have to be present or at least be able to say yes, they accept the nomination.
I was just wondering if there's any way. I don't believe we have communications with any of the folks on the outside on the web side of this. I'm not sure if they're able to communicate or not. I believe in the email, I recall that they were not going to be able to email back and forth to this meeting. But
I can open this up. I mean, quite frankly, I'm out of my element here, Kurt. If he can validate or that person that he's speaking about, then I don't have a problem with that.
well, the only thing I was concerned with is just trying to get. I'm not sure where everybody's from. I was fortunate enough to be in town for another meeting today, so I just hung out for a few hours so I could make this one. Was able to make the first two meetings, and for some reason didn't get the emails for the following three, because that was one of the things that was pretty important to me, was staying in touch with this group. This group, to me, seems to me like it was a forward-thinking group that has an opportunity to touch a lot of policies and affect a lot of areas that Arizona is experiencing currently. Just a thought. I don't know if somehow there could be some interaction with the folks on the web to make that happen.
Right, and the note to myself here is verify the integrity of our email list. Right now, you're a prime example where you didn't get the last three, so if I could ask you to take one more step, and that is go to the website, go and send another email in there, and then Hector runs the communications and the website just to make sure, because I don't want to miss anybody. That's
I certainly got, I don't know what happened, but I got the email for this one. Which is why I wanted to be here. It's why I wanted to be here. So.
And are you nominating yourself?
You can nominate yourself.
Yes. You can nominate yourself.
Well, Mr. Chairman, if that's the case, I would like to stay in touch with this group in a very active way.
And the full name again, please?
Patrick Headington.
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 No, Scott. No, you're going to run 3 committees now. So, you want to remove yourself from nomination? Yes. Anything else from the floor? I see Steve Clark trying to raise his hand. One last call, and not for alcohol, for nominations for officer at large. So there's no other nominations from the floor, and so I would suggest that we've got our new one. Patrick, can you come on up and join the group here? We're really informal, so I'd like to know, is there any questions before we go further or move on to the break? Is there any questions about the process now, things that I've probably missed while I'm up here? Nothing?
I agree.
So our next section is a break. If anybody needs to go use the restrooms or anything else, I put down 10 minutes for the break, 10, 15 minutes for a break, and then we'll... 10 minutes, yeah. Does it appear that everybody's in the room, everybody's back after the break? We were going to make Craig McMullen stand up and introduce himself, but we'll just hang tight on that. Okay. I talked about the meetings that we've had that have led up to this, and one of the meetings we took all the information that came from the March 22nd meeting and put them in 4 main groups and set up standing committees. Right now, this section of the meeting tonight is our standing committee. Chairs of each standing committee are going to get up and talk about their standing committee and then look for questions from the floor as to that standing committee and what it's all about. So our first standing committee chair is Randy Burton. I'd ask Randy to come on up, please.
Thank you, Alan. Appreciate this opportunity, and again, I want to recognize and thank Game and Fish for supporting this opportunity for this group here to hopefully to make a difference here. With the exclusive committee here, that I did accept the responsibility of being the lead, and we're just going to cover some of the responsibilities of what the committee is all about here. We're to work with identifying the conservation-related issues and comment to difference of segments of outdoor-related recreationals. But again, we want to really build and be willing to work with the different organizations and just not limit ourselves just with the traditional sportsmen and so forth. That we want to reach out and be in the bird watchers, the boating groups, anything that that we can be out there making a difference with the groups here. That and the most part that we've got a great opportunity to build a foundation. That there's so many groups out there that we have a generic list of probably about 300 to 400 groups that we need to do an outreach program with to help be the liaison between the SCG group and these other groups here on any outstanding issues, some of the potential issues that we've noted from the past, being the road closures and land designations and things there that we want to be that outreach to be connected with these groups and really if these groups support our mission statement and what we're all about, then having that opportunity that we can again be their voice and help identify any issues that they're up against. But it's just not limited to these organizations. It could be people and businesses involving ATVs, that has impact. Could be big five sporting goods that can be impacted with anything changes on the recreational activities. So with that being said, to be an outreach, that the most important part is volunteers and subcommittees. And with that's what's going to make this success. That we got to get out and contact these individual groups and get their support, and we'll have a process in place by doing that. But we just need to outreach for volunteers that commit to our mission statement, that can participate and help us with our goals here within our group. With our different groups here, that we intertwine. I mean, we're basically one unit, but we are going to be connected and intertwined with the communications and what's coming down from legislation. That we got to reach out and communicate that to the different groups. How they're going to be impacted, so they can be a voice out there too. Because hopefully that we're going to be spread out all over the state of Arizona. That way that when the voice is heard and the different groups and organizations, we're heard statewide. It's just not being heard in Tucson or Phoenix or Flagstaff or Show Low or any of those places there. that we're participating and supporting all the different groups, throughout the state of Arizona. That already during the break, I'm very blessed. I got one more volunteer for our committee, so I'm one leg up on some of these other committees right here, right now. So again, that once we, during the meetings or after the meetings there, that we'll show you how to communicate here to volunteer. But again, that's the key. I'm going to jump ahead a couple of slides. Well, point out here, and this way we can show this a couple different times, but the scginfo.com, that there's a place on there for contact. And then within the contact, that's where you can actually put in your name, your email address, and then actually saying, I would like to be on a committee. And we will communicate back with you. And the only thing we're pledging that you do support the mission statement, and we'll find you a place on the committees. And if there's one particular committee, state the committee that you want to be on, and we will be in contact with you. Is there any questions or anything from? Yeah.
I've got a question. So my name's Stan Johnson, and on the Inclusiveness Committee, what I want to get a feel for is for the SCG, is the SCG's mission to represent all groups, no matter what, and be a voice, or is it that we would expect those groups to kind of sign up and buy into what we're doing, and then we'll represent them? You see what I mean? Can they just use us as a lobby group versus, no, they kind of got to get in line with what our principles are and what we're trying to push, and then be have one of each of their board members on our group kind of thing. Yeah. You see what I'm asking?
Yeah, absolutely. One of the earlier statements I made, that there's going to be a process. And within the process, that we'll be in contact with them, and then once we're in contact with them, we'll have a template that we'll ask them, and the representative from their group, Ben, the president, or whoever that's an officer of their organization, to actually says, yes, I endorse the SCG group, I want to be a part of the group, and that way that we can have that on file, that they do support us. It's just not somebody out in the left field saying, hey, I want to be part of it. There is a process that, that they have to sign up. It's a simple process. Yeah. We're not asking for a whole lot, but just at the end of the day, they understand what we're doing, what our bylaws state, what we're meant to be in our mission statement, so they can support us.
Righto. And I think, from my perspective and my experience, I think that's important that they understand what this mission statement is, so that they don't just assume that if they sign up to be supporting us, that we will necessarily support them. Right. Because some of the various groups have separate, specific interests.
Yeah, we don't
may
want
or may not be aligned with the interests of what this group is trying to be interested in, and that would be something I would just want to understand, that they make sure they're cool with, and we're good with it too, and we can partner where the partnership works, and maybe it doesn't always work depending on what their mission statement is. Right.
So, and we want to make it a win-win. But again, we need to understand what their issues are, and as long as they're within line with our mission statement and what we're all about, then we welcome their opportunities so we can help represent them.
Yep, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I just
Thank
thought
you.
that
Good
was part
question.
of inclusiveness. I appreciate it.
Good question. Any more questions? Okay, you want to? I think Kurt may have one.
Well, Randy, I think it's important to point out, especially for our folks that may be viewing on the web, you're from Flagstaff, and I think it might be good that sometimes with our officers and our committee chairs to kind of designate where, because I think we have a pretty broad, and we just added obviously Yuma tonight, which is great. But Randy drives all the way down from Flagstaff, so we also have good geographic representation. I think it's just important to point out.
Yeah, appreciate that, Kurt. That again, that's what we're really looking for in these subcommittees supporting us is a broad range of volunteers throughout. So we're not limited to anybody. But again, that there's when you look at this long list of 300 or 400 generic lists we have that as a starting foundation that we can outreach to, that they're all over state of Arizona, and we're going to need participants in every region to help us out. So, okay, Alan.
Thank you, Randy. Okay, the next standing committee is the Legislative Standing Committee, and Don McDowell is the chair for that, and we're going to have Don come up and discuss a little bit about what's going on with the Legislative Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Davis, and members. Our Legislative Committee is made up of myself and Scott Corcoran, unless he's changed his mind already. No, you're still in? Great. We will be working directly and very closely with members of the department, members of the commission, and specifically Tony Giles, the department legislative liaison. And as most of us know, the legislature is in recess. And we will have posted, if it's not already, a September 12th update from Mr. Giles, AZGFD Legislative Affairs recap of the 50th legislature entrance session. But I want to point out that I believe in what Commissioner Davis has said, and Deputy Director Hovatter, we're in a battle. The North American model is at risk. Our hunting rights, our fishing rights, our land access is certainly at risk. Some of the things that we're going to look at very, very closely, we're not going to try to reinvent the wheel. We're not going to try to start any battles. What our goal is to enlighten the public. There seems to be a lot of folks that misinterpret some of the legalese that comes out of these legislative bills, me included. So between Scott, myself, and the other board members, we're going to try to digest this and see what it really means, get the pork fat out of it, and get down to the nitty-gritty of it. That doesn't necessarily mean that we're always going to agree with the department stance. We may not always agree with the commission stance. My belief is that we, the people, have to run this state. It takes a community to support the department. The department, in turn, supports the commission and all the other outdoor groups, whether you're fishing, birders, or critter groups, as they're called. We've got to have a common denominator, and the common denominator is to understand what our legislators, these are elected officials, are doing to us. And I think the key to this success of this committee is to wade through the miles and piles of minutia, get down to the bottom line, and make it available to the public. Currently, and if you've been to the commission meetings and been following along on their website, there's quite a few hot spots. The Grand Canyon Monument hasn't gone away. We're watching that very closely. We got a notification from Steve Clark, and I want to thank Steve for his involvement with the Sonoran Monument issue. We've got Steve's letter, a letter from the department on its stance, and I'm not going to stand here and insult your intelligence by reading them to you, but all of the appropriate letters that come from the different groups. SCGs will be making recommendations both for and against some of this legislation as we go through the issues. We've got a storm coming. I believe that in talking with some of the people in the department. You start looking around, the wolf issue is a big deal. I believe it's going to be, we already have wolves. We politically have agreed to support 100 wolves. That issue's coming back around again. We've got the addition of another 1,000 gray wolves potentially. in Mexico, on their northern range, southern Arizona, and into southern New Mexico. A couple other things that are, all of this stuff doesn't happen out of town. We've got the McDowell Mountain Preserve that those folks out there, and I don't want to be accused of picking on these folks, but they're under the belief that the McDowell Mountain Preserve is their backyard. It's not. It goes back to we the people. That's our land. They want to ban hunting. This week it's bow hunting. The Scottsdale City Council just had a meeting. There's another meeting scheduled, and talking with some of the department officials, and they don't have the power or rule of law, to enforce that. However, we think they're going to make a pretty hard charge at the commission to have bow hunting banned, and we'll keep you apprised of that. One of the other things that's been a key issue here lately is the non-lead voluntary ban of lead ammunition in the California Condor Range. We have been talking to southern Utah, and we'll keep an eye on what they're doing to follow along. We've got 90% compliance out of Arizona, and I think our hat should be tipped to the sportsmen that have been doing that. So having said all of that, we will post a hot link into the legislative affairs of Tony Giles' office, so we do have automatic updates, and there is a place on our website, as Randy pointed out. We'll certainly take all the help we can get. The legislative issue is a little bit deeper than I initially thought it would be. As you get into the root, in wherever there's smoke, there's usually something smoldering, and trying to root through the smolder to find out who lit the fire is an arduous task. We're going to do that, get to the bottom of all of this legislation, sort it out, and present it in a manner that hopefully it's digestible and understandable, and something that we can either make sense, say yes or no. So having said that, that's about where we are. Scott, do you have anything to add? No. Mr. Chairman, I believe I am finished. Yeah, any questions? I'm sorry, Commissioner, we're not taking questions from the commission today. Thank you, sir.
I think it's just really a point of clarification. I think you said it, because the slide but I know that your intention in the previous meetings is for the SCG to take positions on these issues at the legislature when appropriate, when you deem appropriate, and kudos for that. I think that's an important piece of communicating for the entity and for sportsmen in general, and needed at the legislature, because obviously the more groups that are active, then the more potential to figure out where the smolder is, as you described it, and deal with it. So I just wanted to make clear, because I don't think it probably isn't that clear on the sign. I know reviewing legislation, but I know you expect to take positions.
Like most committees, I'm seeing this for the first time. So thank you, Commissioner Davis. Yeah, I just want to reiterate that point. We are all engaged in a battle space, and we need the input of all of the groups, whatever they are, in order to make a conscious decision. And Commissioner, we will have opinions, sometimes pro, sometimes con. It may hopefully be in line with the commission and the department. Sometimes it may not be. Thank you.
I think Don brings up a good point, and that is we're an independent group, and I feel really fortunate that this group actually should work very closely with the commission and with the game department, but we are an independent group. And as such, we're going to, all the people that are on the standing committees and within the volunteers are type A personalities, most of them, and they'll come up and speak their mind. And I think a lot of us are driven by altruistic goals, and as such, we're going to say exactly how we feel and make positions on exactly how we feel and not be a puppet on a string. So I think it's important to note that. The next standing committee is departmental issues, and Phil Kramer is the chair. Speaking for Phil is the co-chair, Gene Owens.
Turn it off. Hey, my name is Gene Owens. I come from up north, Williams, Arizona. I really volunteered for this committee because I'm up there and I hear a lot of people that have a lot of questions about why does Game and Fish do this, why there's tags out here, why there's archery here and no muzzleloader. And so I thought it was really interesting. You can see that we're going to collect concerns from the members along with the affiliated members. And something I've never really noticed before is that we're actually going to go out to the people that aren't affiliated with anything. There's a group of people out there throughout the state that really aren't involved with the Rocky Mountain elk or whatever, but they still have their concerns. So we want to listen and hear what they have to say, what their inputs are. We're going to talk in things about the Arizona, the fishing, hunting, and everything else, bonus points, the habitat, and I've already had a lot of questions on it. And again, not only just the hunting portion of it, we're going out for all sportsmen, fishermen, catch and release things, limits, whatever, rules or whatever. We're going to listen to everything on it. We're asking for all these emails. We're going to get them. We're going to look at them. We're going to try to prioritize them and look at what we get most of the responses on, areas like this. And then we are going to get with our departments, with the department, and try to get answers. Something that's very important to us, and everybody's been saying it, is two-way communication. We want people to contact us, let us know their inputs, and in response, we are going to do the best we can to get that information, to find out what the answers are, and to feed it back to them so that they know where we're coming from. Right now, there's about 3 of us on our committee, and we've already been getting a lot of information from different people. So more volunteers we can get, the better off we are, as with everybody. So I'm putting a thing out there, especially anybody watching. We'd like people from all over the state, anywhere from Kingman to Page to wherever it is, to get in contact with us and start giving us some input on it. Okay? Any questions? Commissioner Davis?
For me personally, this is one of the most important committees in a lot of ways, because there are the ability to attract and catalog information from our constituents is a wonderful thing. And I think just to put on your list of one of the ways that the committee can function effectively is when the department posts the commission agenda. There's usually a lot of issues. In fact, this last meeting we dealt with catch and release. We dealt with the use of certain species as bait, and the ability to transport or not transport, and which ones you could catch and use and which ones you turned into bird food and all that kind of stuff. So if you were to take, I would suggest the committee take the posted agenda, and when these issues come up that we know have constituent impact, it would be great if you talk to the members about how are you feeling about that issue. Or sometimes the issue may appear to be one thing and it's really another. It looks like it's a simple issue, but it's actually complicated because it's dealing with federal statutes. And people ask us about for example, the no plugs in shotguns, but as with migratory birds, you still have to have a plug in your shotgun. A lot of people don't know that. They're like, why do I have it for this and I don't have to have it for that? Looking at the agenda, each agenda I think is a great opportunity to communicate with the members about their feelings about those issues that come up, and then it would be great feedback to the department and the commission about how the SCG is feeling about those issues. Be certainly helpful to me, or to be able to raise them. We had a long discussion the other day. I'm learning something I knew nothing about, pneumatic weapons. And there's a lot of issues related to pneumatic weapons and which hunts do you allow pneumatic weapons in. which hunts don't you, that kind of thing, and getting your feedback would be terrific from my perspective. So I just look at that as a suggestion or a device you may be able to use to get in front of some of the issues. And the way we're doing the policy on the commission now is we're doing what we call first read, second read. So the first read, the first time the issue is brought to us by the department staff, they explain the issue to the commission, whether there's legal issues related to it, organizational issues, statutory changes, or whatever it is. And we learn at that meeting, in essence. And then the second read is when you would take it, and the commission can give the staff their thoughts about that issue. And then the second read is when actually the vote's taken at the next meeting. Some people say that slows the process down, but it actually provides more opportunity for input for groups like the SCG. So I would use that agenda as a lot of times to ask members, how are you feeling about issue X or issue Y, and then feeding that back to the commission and the department.
Okay, that'd be a great input. Thanks a lot.
I'm thinking more about the two-way communication, and a lot of stuff we breezed through really quick tonight, but I know as me, just a private hunter and fisherman and sitting at home and doing the draw process or going fishing to a certain place, I've had a lot of different questions in my mind, and it would be of benefit to me, and it is going to be a benefit to me right now to know that you don't just call a phone number and hope somebody answers the phone and get someone who doesn't really care that much about the answer or doesn't know what department to send you to. I see as a pretty good function of this Sportsmen's Constituent Group, opening up the communications is one easy thing to say, but specific communications, and I don't envision us being a hotline where you can call up and say, how come I haven't been drawn for 10 years? But I do think that you can call up and present. I have an outfitter friend that talked about the fact that he can't get the successful applicants for a certain amount of time, and he'd like an answer as to why it takes X amount of time to get that applicant list. There's a lot of questions out there like, I'm missing bonus points, or how come we have X amount of tags on an early hunt, or why are we front loading them? And instead of feeling disconnected from the department and disconnected from the commission and just another number out there, you actually have a group now that you can send email questions to, and actually you're going to get a response on it. You're not going to get that it got transferred to some department. So I feel real good about the Departmental Issues Standing Committee. Thanks, Gene. The last standing committee lead, he is out elk hunting right now, so the person standing in for Jerry Dowdett is Hector Albron, and he's going to talk about communications.
Thank you, Alan. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Thank the Commission and Department for hosting us. This Standing Committee has been a lot of work these past couple months. I have to give thanks where it's due. We've had a lot of people and organizations step up and assist us with not only web hosting free of charge, but web design. We actually have an up and running website, which you can see that's been helping us be successful in gaining more members and people that want to be involved, establishing email lists. We were able to establish an actual email address where you can communicate directly with us. And that, I think, is the most important thing that we can do. The Communication Standing Committee has the ability to reach out to every corner of the state. Sometimes there's things that are going on in our hot topics here in Phoenix that everyone's talking about, that when you're in Young, Arizona, when you're in Wilcox, you really don't know what's going on. And we want to establish a presence where anyone, if they hear a rumor, they can come to a location online and get the real facts about it in real time, and see where we stand on certain issues, on legislative issues, et cetera, et cetera. I have to agree with what Don said. There's a lot of things that go on in legislature and so forth that is in attorney jargon that even for myself it's hard to follow. And I have my hats off to these volunteers because they can decipher this and put it in layman's terms and make it easy to understand and follow. And I think that's going to be a huge asset to the sportsmen and women in the state. With that being said, we've been busy, like I said, establishing the website. It's a work in progress. As we move along, we're going to have more and more pages open up. Now that we have the board elected and sat, then there'll be a information page there. We want to be as transparent as possible on who we are, what we stand for, and definitely have some contact information to get in touch with us directly. There will be pages there where you can inquire about certain legislation, again, see where we stand on certain topics, and that's pretty much it. It's a lot of work. It's even tonight, every time we meet, I have more and more feedback. Even tonight we had a lot of talk about maintaining open communication even during these meetings with opening a chat or something like that where people can follow along and type in and stuff like that. Getting more involved with the social media, with the tweeting and the Facebook and everything like that. We want to address that for sure. And we want to make it as easy as possible for the new generation to be involved. That is the number one reason why I'm standing here today, is because I want to make sure our heritage is here for everyone in the future that wants to enjoy it. And if we can accomplish that amongst all the groups in Arizona, and in 30, 40, 50 years, we're still out there enjoying the state and the wildlife in it, then that's going to be a great legacy for us. So with that said, are there any questions on the Communication Standing Committee? Any concerns or? Thank you.
Hector, that I think it's pretty impressive what you've shared in the previous meetings as far as this, how many hits if you had on the website and everything. I think that's pretty impressive. If you share some of those statistic numbers there, appreciate it.
Absolutely. I actually have some of those numbers here. Our website went online not very long ago, maybe a month ago, and we've had over 1,000 page hits so far at our home page. A lot of those come about when the department or ourselves shoot out an email blast, which you triggered something as well. We've been having issues with deciphering the emails that, when we send out an email blast, we get a lot of emails back. Your email sometimes recognizes our email address as spam and so forth, and we're slowly working on making sure that things are running smoothly. But if you can, just make sure that you recognize our email address. If you know that there's an email blast going out, if you've heard it from your friends that, did you hear what SCG sent out? Check your spam folder. Please do that and make sure that it's checked off that we are not spam, because that's an issue we're fighting right now. There are some programs that we're going to implement in order to address that as well. But with that being said, anytime we do send an email blast out, or the department does, concerning SCG, our hits really spike up, and we are still getting inquiries and people asking to be added to the email list pretty much weekly, which is good. Yes, sir.
Hey, Hector. So looking at the responsibilities, the first bullet point is work with the inclusiveness subcommittee. And it's along the lines of the meeting, or the question I asked earlier. It says to establish liaison with other sportsmen's groups. Will we be working with, as we quote unquote sign on other groups, whether it be ADA, AES, whoever, or the sheep guys or the antelope guys, whoever, we'll grab their email list right? So we'll work on that maybe,
Well,
or what is there a plan for that necessarily, or that's just something that maybe might be nice to do, but.
That's a good question, Stan. We have to be very careful.
Yeah, right.
We can only send emails out to people that specifically add themselves to our email list.
Okay.
It's for privacy reasons and so forth. Just like you wouldn't like receiving something from Visa if you're with American Express, for instance. So to touch base a little bit more on the first bullet point there, we're going to be working with the Inclusiveness Standing Committee. Basically, when we have people join up with us or partner with us, with that comes links. When people visit our website, we want to have a quick link via a logo of theirs, for instance, to redirect traffic to them, and vice versa, and that sort of thing. So I think that's going to be the main thing, making it easy for us to work together. And the only way we can do that is through the Inclusiveness Committee, on who to contact and so forth. And we currently are working on a form where anyone that joins up can, send us their logo, for instance, or their email address, or web links and stuff like that. Anyone else? All right. Thank you very much. I'll hand it over to Alan Taylor.
Hector. I was thinking about what Hector just talked about, and I think all the affiliated people and all the organized groups right now would say their number one thing that they've been fighting for years is apathy, the disengaged public. If you look at the numbers, and somebody can help clarify that I'm right on this, but you look at the number of people applying for tags and then look at the number of people in all wildlife conservations, and it's going to be really skewed. There's very few people that get engaged, just like the group of people in this room right now. Regardless of which side of an issue you're on, there's very few people that actually get engaged. And so as an alternative way to look at the Communications Committee, I'm pretty sure that the Commission and the Game Department wants to try something new, something different, to get more bodies engaged in telling them what they want and don't want. And that Communication Committee, while it's got a website up, while it's got an email address, if that website is not used, if you don't get on there and type in a question or a concern or a thought or a suggestion, then in essence we're all wasting our time here, because the biggest issue here is engagement. Getting involved, signing up a couple existing groups to say that they sponsor us and only 10 of us get together once a year for the next 10 years till we all die is not going to do any different than what's been done before. So right now, the engagement of the unaffiliated people need to feel like someone actually cares and hears what they have to say. But in turn, they've got a responsibility, and that is to step up and get a little bit more engaged. Whether you can only get engaged by typing on the computer, that's fine, but you've got to get engaged into something as it relates to the future of our outdoor industry. So I think it's really important that they utilize that web for more than just a quick check to see if there's something big going on. We're definitely not going to take this website and give you a preview of the draw. You're not going to benefit immediately from preference on big game tags. What you're going to benefit on is your kids and your kids down the road. And so engagement is really, really, really important. And if it's not with SCG, do it with another group. Do it with AES, ADA, the other fine organizations that are out there. But you've got to get engaged in the process, or there won't be many people to blame the situation you're in if you don't get engaged now.
Mr. Taylor?
Yes, sir.
One comment. I don't know necessarily that it's apathy among the sportsmen and outdoorsmen as much as it is the nature of people who enjoy the outdoors. We're not joiners. Not politically active. I mean, I served on the board of the Arizona Bowhunters Association 25, 30 years ago. And we had the same argument. Walt Collins used to call it preaching to the choir. And we had, the ABA had thousands of members, and everything was done by 7 or 8 guys. And to this day, the same thing happens. So I don't know if it's apathy, and I'm here because I wanted to see what was going on with this group and what you guys were all about, and I think you have an incredible concept and a great idea, and I'd like to get involved. But let's not categorize. I've got tons of friends that love to hunt, and they're out there all the time, and that's what they want to do. None of them are here tonight. I am, and they're all, well, let me know what it was all about. So that's what we're fighting here. I'd like to see this be a success. I think getting the different organizations together in a united front would be a powerful force in this state, and I'd like to see it happen, but I don't know if it's apathy as much as the nature of the beast. Thanks.
Thank you. And I hear where you're coming from. I have maybe a little similar background like yourself, where, you know, sat on a board for a couple of years, and it is the same 7 or 8 people. But earlier in the conversation tonight, I mentioned maybe doing something different, and the people here are not showing apathy. I've got buddies just like you. I'm the stupid one that gets involved with things at times, and I do report back to them. But I'm still asking myself the question, how do I get them involved? And them is a lot more than 1 or 2 guys. Maybe if it's only on the website where they'll type in their suggestions, but somehow, some way, it's kind of like an alcoholic. If he wants to quit drinking and he's switching from beer to wine or wine to this or that, you know, if you're doing the same thing day in and day out and expecting a different result. So I know that we've got to do something different to bring in an influx of more people. It doesn't mean the groups that are out there right now are doing anything wrong, but we need more people, more volunteers, more engagement, more involvement, and not saying we have all the answers, but somehow we've got to get our finger on that and make that happen. And I believe in a small way SCG is going to attempt to at least analyze that and try to change some of the things that have happened for years. Any questions? We're dialing right down to the very end of the meeting. I was hoping for a lot more questions from the floor, but we've had a lot of good questions. Our next, I believe where we're at, right now, the board has not, or the tentative board now, the formal board has not selected a date for the committee as a whole, and we've kind of tabled that until we get together on our next steering committee meeting, which with hunting season, I know for me, I got tagged, hunting is on my mind as well, and so we haven't established our next steering committee meeting, but I imagine we'll email tonight, and very shortly we'll have a steering committee meeting where we can formalize the committee as a whole date and time and immediately post it on that website. The website at this point needs to become a tool where people can go look at that for dates, times, maybe an alert. At this point, that seems to be more convenient for a lot of people to look at the website. So I really challenge everyone to use that website for more than just a check-in. Use it when you've got questions. I bet you at least 50% of the people in this room right now have questions that either the Departmental Issues Committee could be posed with, or the Inclusiveness Committee. So really use that website. Commissioner Davis.
Again, from the suggestion category, and we talked about this early on, and there's been a lot of work you've done since. So these are these little issues that I'll just bring back up for your consideration. And again, I'm looking at it selfishly from how this organization can help the commission and staff. We had talked about this was months ago, so it's appropriate to bring it up now. If you look at the calendar of future commission meetings, there's 2 things on that list, and one is the dates, and 2 is the commission is going to be going back out on the road, which it has not done for several years for financial reasons, and that was a prudent decision. At the same time, there's something lost in and not being out on the road as far as interacting with constituents. I would recommend that you look at that list and wherever appropriate or whenever appropriate or works with your schedules, if you schedule board meetings or any other meetings, subcommittee meetings, or even committee of the whole meetings, around those commission dates, there may be some great opportunities to interact with the commission to bring viewpoints of what you've been working on to the commission. So it's kind of a two birds with one stone type of deal. So I would just again put that on the platter if you all choose. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But if it could be something that would be another good interaction between the commission and the SCG.
I volunteered to have the next one on the Kaibab, November 22nd, but nobody wanted to go on that. We had discussed that, and actually I think we made an informal agreement that we're not sure which meeting of the steering committee, the next one or the one after, but we're going to go on the road because I don't live in Yuma or live on an outlying area, but I know how I would feel, that I'd feel kind of just forgotten, that everything happens in Phoenix, and I think it's really important to get to Williams, get to Yuma, get to Pine Top, Flagstaff, and have meetings there and engage the residents for them to realize that just because we're in Phoenix doesn't mean we don't want to deal with the whole state, and so I think that's important. Thank you. Anything else? We talked about, for action items, we talked about email integrity, or at least I wrote a note for myself that we want to make sure that our email list is working as best we can. If there's glitches, any action items, things that you could think about now. Quiet group tonight. Oh, yeah. And I'm going to put the, Ben brought up a good point, put the actual email address to SCG right there on the screen. Any questions would be appreciated. Any suggestions, any input, we're more than willing with open eyes and ears. Yes, Randy?
We also want outreach to people who want to volunteer, but also for the ones that are representing these organizations or individuals to email us to say we want to be part of the group there. So, so make it a two-way street. We don't have to outreach to them; they can come to us as well.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how the web works here, but Randy makes a very valid point, and that is, let's say that there's use Yuma as an example. Yuma Valley Rod and Gun Club is watching this meeting, and they want to reach out to us and say, hey, it sounds like we are very interested in what you're all about. We'd either like a meeting or we'd like a phone conference. We'd like to reach out and say that we'd like to become a partner. So utilize the email right now for purposes of questions as well as reaching out, because I think it's going to be of utmost importance that we get this groundswell of all affiliated and unaffiliated people together so that we can become a body that can actually make a difference and have some authority and power. If we show our vote for or against a particular topic or a particular politician or whatever that will be satisfied within our bylaws, we want to have some power. If there's only 4 people in the group and we write down that we don't like ABC, that's not going to show anything. So in general, we'd like to see a groundswell and see increased participation and partnership with this group, and that can be done through the website as well as our people. Randy's running the group for inclusiveness, and we're going to be touching bases, but we really do need to get partners out there now. Good point, Randy. Thank you. Anything else? Okay, I want to thank everybody for coming to tonight's meeting, and I'm going to allow Mr. Commissioner Davis to wrap it up.
I did have one question.
Yeah.
Money. Have you talked at all yet or made any decisions about, I know there'll be some resources that are needed, and I know that hasn't been the focal point of getting launched, but have you thought anything about that?
I think about money all the time. So, Absolutely honest answer to you. We've talked briefly about it, but we have been somewhat consumed with just formalizing the group and setting us together. But the first step, I guess, to answer for you is establishing the 501c3 is the first step in that. Right now, what little funding we've needed has been out of our own pockets, and I know there's a couple on the group that are willing to continue to help out in that process. And then, but once we can get recognized as a 501c3, I know that that will help the money process along.
And make sure you hit me up for a check, because you'll get one. I really appreciate it, and the opportunity again to participate with you folks. And I plan on still coming to meetings if you'll let me. But I do want to once again thank you for one, being welcoming to me when we started with this endeavor, and I do want to give a shout out to Ben and Mr. McMullen, who I think most of you know is going to be taking over Flagstaff region, and so Gene, you'll get to see a lot more of them up there. You got somebody you can ping on about department issues, and I'm really excited about that as a former Flagstaffian. Having somebody like Mr. McMullen in charge of that region, I think, is a wonderful thing for our department and hunters and anglers in that region. And Ben's been really helpful. The department, I know, they really stepped up and this was one of those where somebody thought of this idea in a commission meeting and probably didn't vet it very much, and the department really stepped up, adding more work to what are already very hefty work schedules. And so it's been, as I said earlier, for me, a great experience. I look forward to attending the meetings. I look forward to being a member, and I look forward to being a donor. And so thanks a lot, and I'm going to hang out with you guys as long as you'll let me hang around. So thanks a lot.
Thank you. Last call. Any questions? Thank you, everybody, for being here tonight. And remember, you're part of this group. I mean, this whole room is full of people, as well as on the Internet, that are part of this Sportsmen's Constituent group. And we didn't set up to fail, so we would like to succeed, but it's only going to come from the people that volunteer and can lend their minds and their spirits to this operation. Thank you.